Okay. It's 4 o'clock. Okay, let's call to order the Planning Committee meeting of Tuesday, March 22nd. It's 4 o'clock. We have an agenda in front of us with it revised. A motion on the minutes. Moved, seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carried. All right, next meeting is April 5th in these very council chambers. Okay, the first item is we have is the application by Parkland Properties for the rezoning at 11720 Williams Road from the single detached RS1E to the zone to the compact single detached RC2 zone. And we have designated speakers, Mr. Craig and Ms. Lucier. And we have a staff recommendation to be introduced and given first reading. And I refer to you. Cynthia, are you on?
I am on through
There
the
you
chair
go.
to members of the committee. I don't have anything else to add, but I'm here to answer any questions.
Oh, okay. And do we have any questions? Carol?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. I was looking at the map, and it shows that this duplex, there were two houses will back onto a lane that backs on to a single-family neighborhood. And as I have said many times before, it's always my concern whether or not there will be any sun decks facing the lane, because I think it's important that we make sure that the people who live across the lane are able to maintain their privacy. So as before, staff may not have anything to say about it, I would implore the developer to make sure that there are no sun decks facing the lane. I believe we've got a report coming back on that in the near future. Is that right, Mr. Craig?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, in terms of the the questions regarding balconies, this item was actually deferred from the last planning committee meeting to this planning committee meeting to allow the applicant to answer those questions. I'm not sure why the applicant is not in the meeting. They did receive an invite for it. The applicant has advised us verbally that they do not intend to include balconies, but the purpose of the referral to this meeting was so that they can address committee directly. And with respect to the referral motion reference, that referral motion was passed at the last planning committee. Staff are in the process of reviewing that and will report back as soon as we're able to.
Okay.
So is it your advice that we defer it again until the developer can come to a meeting, or what communication have you had with them?
The developer was a registered delegate for this meeting. They did receive the meeting invite. That was all confirmed with them this morning. I do not know why they are not in the meeting.
What do you want to do?
Well, I think we've got the answer from Mr. Craig. If the developers assured Mr. Craig that there wasn't any balconies, then I think we have to take it on face value on it, because we can stop it at the next go round. Okay. If there are, we've got lots of opportunity. I think it should. I think we kind of have to go forward. Wow, because and that's why I put the motion forward. You're the one that's not wanting the balcony.
Yeah.
It's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
On it. So we've got one person, we've deferred it because of you. And I think we need to go forward and public hearing. We don't like it, we can turn it down and send it back to public hearing. I've got another speaker.
Mr. Chair.
Michael, are you up? I'm sorry. Michael, are you there?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah,
you're on.
Oh, great. I had my hand raised, but I lowered it because I thought there was another more discussion to come on that thread. Okay. So I'll leave it at that, because I would have deferred it to have the developer here, because that's where my questions were going to go. So, okay. Thanks.
All right, Jack?
Yes, I don't think we can move forward with a condition that there will be no balcony. I mean, the balcony issue would be not an issue.
Well, you're assuming I don't want any balconies.
Right.
You don't have that right to do that to me.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to vote it down, you vote it down.
Okay.
But don't assume some of us don't like balconies. I like balconies. Anyhow, Harold? Harold, where are you?
Muted. Okay, have you got me?
Yeah, I got you now. Voice anyhow, no picture, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, I've got a problem. My computer's getting repaired, and I'm on my old picture, and the picture doesn't work on the old computer. Okay, question I've got is I didn't see any particular environmental improvements in this one. They deal with, I think, trees and stuff like that, but what about solar or baseboard heating or geothermal or heat exchangers or anything like that? I'm right now, I guess I want to stress that we should not be building houses of any kind using natural gas. And so I just wonder what we're getting here.
Okay, to staff.
Through the chair to Councillor Steves, because it's a single-family rezoning application, we don't normally have house plans or anything like that attached to the staff report. But the applicant is required to comply with the BC Energy Step Code at building permit stage. I'm not sure if they have already decided what kind of heating system they're going to use.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I'm pressing this is that. We're facing a major crisis that's far worse than we ever anticipated just even 6 months ago. And we've just got to get off of natural gas, just cut it off like yesterday. So I think every application, one of the requirements should be no natural gas. And I'd certainly like to, well, I guess this will go to a public hearing where I can ask it at that time. But I think it's from here on in, it's energy alternatives or else. And I think we should get that message across. And one other thing, I'm doing some house repairs, and believe it or not, the price of fir has gone up like 3 times. It's so expensive, it's like buying gold. And we're knocking down houses with fir frame structures. And so what's happening with the demolition of the houses on the site?
Through Councillor Steves, through the chair to Councillor Steves, I'm sorry, I don't have that information available. And again, the applicant was registered to participate today, and he did confirm to me that he was going to be attending. He would have maybe been able to answer that question, but I'm sorry, I don't have those details.
I assume it'll just be demolished and crunched to become firewood, but anyway, I'll ask that later.
All right, are there any other comments? All right, I'd move the...
Through the chair, if I may, I would just like to point out that the demolition of the building will need to be in compliance with the city's demolition recycling bylaw. Yeah. Mr. Cooper is on the line if you would like further details as to the requirements.
Yeah, okay. If you would, James?
Yes, through Mr. Chair to Councillor Steves, yes, all demolition of single-family homes are required to have the construction materials recycled, especially the concrete and the wood framing. The recycling has to be demonstrated via waybills that are presented to us in order to reclaim any kind of a refund on a deposit. The deposit is actually very substantial. So we would say that 70% by weight of all materials in the existing house has to be recycled and has to be demonstrated.
Okay, that's where I have a difference of opinion. As I understand it, recycling is if they take the wood and make it into pellets and they ship it to Europe someplace to burn in a waste to energy plant. So have we changed our wood recycling rules yet?
Through the chair to Councillor Steves, no, we have been, staff has been over the last year and a half discussing with industry alternate ways of demolition. So there's alternatives to that, but we are not in a position to impose the method for recycling.
I believe. Just go ahead.
Well, the difficulty is really an industrial one, where the materials that could be harvested from a demolished house is very difficult to reuse as a structural material, because all that lumber has to be regraded, and the building industry and the building codes requires that all lumber be graded properly. So the lumber that is extracted is usually of a timber quality, and is usually used in decorative or repurposed for decorative and not for rebuilding houses. Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. Anyway, I'll work on that further. We managed to find some used lumber, and all we had to do was pull the nails. So that's, but it took a while.
Okay, are there any other questions of staff? Okay, I've got D. Whalen delegate.
Mr. Chair, sorry, Joshua Reese here. I did notice that the applicant has now logged into the meeting. Mr. Hassan is in the meeting now.
Okay, Mr. Hassan, I should say. Are you putting any balconies in either of these new structures? Can't hear you. You're muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes. Did you hear my question?
Okay.
Are you putting a
Yes,
balcony at the back of either of these two homes?
No, the proposed plan does not have any balconies proposed.
There are no balconies.
No.
Okay, thank you very much. So that gives us the answer, okay, that we asked. Thank you very much, Mr. Hassan. Okay, any questions of the developer other than that one? Okay, I've got Dee Wayland. Can we get Dee on here? She wanted to speak on item number 1. Dee, are you there? Deidre, there you are.
Yes, I would. I had asked City Clerk if I could speak on items 3, 4, and 5.
Oh, not number 1. Okay. 3, 4,
That's
and
right.
5. Okay, thank you. Okay, then seeing no others. Harold?
Well, I still have a question. Yeah, I have a question I asked when I wasn't here. In terms of the energy, are you looking at any energy alternatives like solar or heat exchangers or anything like that to get away from natural gas in terms of the heating of the buildings?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. All the new homes, we always nowadays pre-duct the homes with solar rough-in, so to make it easier in the future to convert them into solar powers. We always have those built in into the new homes, and also we are using currently the high efficiency heat exchange boilers for heating and domestic hot waters. But in future, there's always enough power in these homes to use electric boilers also if needed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions of staff and or the developer? Okay, I'd move the recommendation. Okay, that's on the floor for bylaw 10359 for the rezoning at 11720 Williams Road. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, if any, is carried without dissension. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Assad. Thank you, all the other delegations, and thank you, staff. Okay, the next is an application by Zhao XD Architect for rezoning at 8031, 5171 number 2 Road and 5760, 80 and 5786 Blundell Road from single detached RS1E zone to medium density townhouse RTM3 zone. And Mr. Craig and Mr. Rockerby. You're on.
Yes, through the chair. Through the chair, I'll be Mr. Rockerby today.
Oh,
and this year. This
much
this
improved.
Project is this project includes 25 townhouse units, which include 4 convertible units. The development enables the immediate and future safety upgrades to the number 2 Road and Blundell intersection, which includes entering into a service agreement for new wider sidewalks and landscape boulevard with the existing curb remaining in place, cash in lieu for replacement of existing flex posts on number 2 Road and for future traffic signal upgrades. This development includes the retention of 2 on-site trees and 5 off-site trees. While there are 2 significant trees which are proposed to be removed, one is in poor condition and at risk of failure. The second is an invasive species, a black locust, and replacement for those would be at a 3-to-1 ratio as per recent amendments to the tree protection bylaw. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Okay, we have some questions of staff. Carol?
Hi, thank you very much for the report. So I'm really concerned about this one. First of all, we're losing 6 rental houses and gaining no rental units whatsoever. Secondly, this expanded driveway, so the townhouse complex to the south, which has 8 units, is only going to be expanded by 2.6 feet because there's a covenant on that complex that allows this complex 25 townhouse units. That's probably 50 cars a day to use that driveway. I wanted to ask staff about the residents of the complex to the south, which has not responded to all the letters and requests by staff. I mean, can we really barrel ahead with this without making sure that they're aware of the covenant and making sure they're aware that their driveway will be used by 25 more townhouses with just 2.6 feet expansion?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Day. On the first point of regarding the rental units, there is a contribution to the affordable housing strategy for this application of $258,000 and change towards that affordable housing fund for the creation of those units elsewhere in the city. In terms of the driveway access, the applicant has contacted the neighbor to the south regarding the existing statutory right-of-way that would allow them to use that access. They've contacted them by registered mail to try and initiate that contact. While that hasn't come to fruition yet, they will continue to work with them to work out a maintenance agreement and so forth. One of the things I will point out is that with the creation of this additional connection through the proposed development with the driveway, it both widens that area as well as enables trucks to actually make a 3-point turnaround for the properties to the south, because currently garbage and recycling trucks have to back out onto number 2 road for the property to the south.
Yeah, I can't support this until there's far better communication with the existing townhouse complex to the south. And I realize that efforts have been made, and I appreciate that, but nothing has come back. This is very worrisome to me. I mean, we're going to have 12 trees removed. We're going to have 44% of the parking be tandem. We're losing 6 rental units. $259,000 towards the affordable housing strategy doesn't even come close to what we need. So I'm going to make a motion to refer this back to get better communication between the townhouse complex to the south and to work out something. I personally think that 2.6 feet expansion of that driveway is just not near enough for, will be probably, 35 townhouses. So yeah, I'm really uncomfortable with this one.
Okay, Alexa?
Thank you, through the chair. Sorry, I thought Harold was first, but anyway. Through the chair to staff. So this basically is in keeping with our community plan of reducing the number of ingress and egress spots onto their arterial road. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, yes, that is correct.
Okay, so this one still has its very own driveway though, right? And then they also join up with the statutory right of way? Or is the first one not a full access to the road?
Through to Councillor Liu, no, this would be the one shared access between the property to the south and this development.
Okay, but it does widen and it does create more access, and we haven't heard back from them. But this is the plan of how we are looking to densify our arterial roads. Is that correct? So part of what makes it affordable for a developer to be able to put in the number of townhouses and to make it denser. And so that then there's more people, and then there's more people using transit, et cetera, and as part of our OCP is that if you're the first person to build the driveway, you know you're going to have to share it ultimately. And we have run into it a couple times where people said they didn't know, but the reality of us working towards this is the plan, and this is how we've been moving forward on this for some years now. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, that is correct. Each time an SRW like this is secured, so when the property to the south redeveloped, there was a legal agreement placed on title to secure this future access that is registered on title for each property moving forward, so that is intended to help carry that awareness forward to when that future development occurs.
Okay, and my understanding is most of these have just been rented while they're going through their rezoning application. There had been some families living here before they sold, and then the land assembly and everything else started moving forward. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, yes, there were individual homes on the site. None of them contained a secondary suite. The 3 properties on Blundell Road were rented out by previous owners. The 3 on number 2 Road were previously owner occupied. So it was a little bit of a mix, but they are, all 6 are currently rented.
Okay.
So they kind of had a bit of a shift.
Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, if I may just add a couple of points. In terms of the driveway access to number 2 Road, that access was reviewed by our transportation department. The widening of that driveway is adequate to accommodate the trips generated from the site and would actually be an improvement upon the current condition that exists, as alluded to by Ms. Smith. Further to that, the city's legal department, as well as the applicant's legal department, has reviewed the legal agreement that was registered on the site to the south and confirmed that that legal agreement provides all the authorities required for the shared access arrangement that's proposed.
Okay, thanks. So it's not like cars are driving through the other development. They're just entering next to basically the one person who's living on the edge there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Harold?
Yeah, I don't think the density is enough, but I'm not going to refer it back because of that, because that's what our bylaw says. But I do have a couple of questions. Same as the last one. What will the energy be, considering that we want to have clean energy and get away from gas? And we're looking at electric baseboard heaters, heat exchangers, solar. What will we have?
Through the chair to Councillor Steeves, the project overall is intended to achieve step code 3. I think I'll defer to the applicant on the specifics of the heating source that are available.
And okay, what does that step code? Does that step code have natural gas?
It does permit it, yes.
Pardon?
Is my understanding.
It does? Then we got to change it. That's what I want to know. The question I've got from staff in general, however, is what would the density take? This is it's unbelievable. We're doing so much low density when we're right across from a shopping center, and all the next townhouses down, when they're 10 or 20 years old, they're going to be bulldozed 20, 30, or 40 for 6-story apartments at least. So I think we should be starting now. But what density does it take to do ground level geothermal?
Through the chair to Councillor Steeves, if I can, in terms of the energy step code, what we are finding with this form of development is that almost all townhouses are including air source heat pumps as part of their achievement of the energy step code. Should this rezoning proceed, there is a development permit required. Through the development permit, we do get more information about the energy approach associated with the development. I did see the architect is here, and he may be able to provide some additional information as to what their intents are should this rezoning proceed.
Okay, that would be great if you could.
Yes, we're proposing the heat pump. We would likely not use the gas. That's all my projects I recommend. We won't use the gas. We use the hydro because the hydro is clean energy.
Well, that's good to hear because it's time we got away from gas completely, and now's the time to start. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions of the architect? All right, seeing none, we do have some delegates on it. Actually, thank you, Mr. Zalf. Okay, now we have Dee Whalen on this particular topic. I got her in 2, 3, and 5. Am I not right?
There's just been a correction, so it's items 3, 4,
no.
5.
3, 4, and 5. Okay, well, okay. All right, sorry, Dave. Okay. All right, seeing no other direction, I'd move the recommendation that rezoning proceed. I have a question of staff, if I may. The only thing is that I had here, I agree with Harold, we should have more density there. To be quite frank with you, we should have an apartment, but I can live with everything that has been following along. But I had a question on the trees. a number of the trees are fruit trees, et cetera, which are still trees, but there was no additional amount for removing the trees. Was it because it was a saw-off or balance? That they met all the guidelines? I didn't see an amount that they would contribute because of removing trees.
Yes, Mr. Chair. They're actually proposing to plant the replacement trees, so there would be 26 required trees to be planted on site to meet the requirement for those that are being removed. They're actually proposing to plant 31 trees, so there's an additional 6 trees over and above the required that are being accommodated on site.
Okay, and I noticed the minimum 6 calipers. Do we know of the trees that are being removed, whether the replacement are equivalent caliper?
Yes, through the chair. So we have the 26 replacement trees, which will be are required to be 8 centimeter caliper deciduous and 4 meter tall conifers.
Okay.
The additional 5 trees that they're providing in addition will have a 6 centimeter, slightly smaller, but the 6 centimeter caliper deciduous and 2 meter tall coniferous for the additional 5 provided for a total of 31.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions of staff? The motion's on the floor. Carol, I see. Okay. Do you want to make a comment?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I would like to, again, I mentioned earlier, I would love to refer this back. If there's no one to second that, then the reason I won't be voting for this is because this plan isn't near good enough. It's a very significant corner, Blundell and Number 2 Road. We need more rentals in that complex. We need better communication. We for sure need higher density. I think Harold's idea is excellent. Compact it and build it up. And we need a wider shared driveway. So I'm not sure where we're at in the agenda here, if I'm allowed to make a motion to refer it back, but this just isn't near good enough, guys. This is an important corner, and we need to get this one right.
Okay, you're allowed to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
You're allowed to make a motion.
To refer it back.
To refer this back to staff, but with what direction?
Okay, we need to have more rentals, better communication with the other complex, higher density potential, and wider shared driveway.
Is there a seconder? I see.
Yeah, I'll second it as long as it's higher density.
Well, she didn't say higher density.
I did. That was the after better communication, higher potential, higher density, and a wider shared driveway.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to refer. Specifically for those items, you will speak either to the referral, in favor of the referral, or opposed to it. Alexa, you're on.
I have a question to staff. Hasn't the applicant designed as big a density as they're allowed under the current OCP?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Liu, the proposed application is in keeping with the city's policies. It includes the standard base density of 0.6 plus 0.1 FAR for a total of 0.7 to accommodate for some road dedication that's created, which would keep it in keeping with the developments adjacent to it, the other townhouse developments that were done before.
And I guess the developer's here. So if you could have built more density at the outset, if you could have designed for more density.
To the motion.
Okay.
To refer. We're talking referral. We're not discussing the event.
Okay.
Either referred or not.
I'm not going to support this. I think if the developer thought that they could have built more, of course they would have built more in the first place if that's what they could have done. If they were wanting to build a rental building, they would have built a rental building. And I think they've communicated with the neighbors. There's not that many neighbors. And so if the neighbors haven't gotten back to them, you know,
Okay.
I don't think they're going to be shocked when the place next door to them that they drive past every day that has a big rezoning sign on the side of it that they've received letters from starts rebuilding one of these days. I don't think that's going to shock them.
Okay. All right, Michael, I saw your hand. We're talking about referral.
Yes, thank you. I'll just be brief then. I can't vote on it today, but I will be in support if this referral does go ahead. And for the same reasons as Councillor Day, Councillor Steves has highlighted. And I also would notify that I think the OCP is where the problem lies. I think the update was needed long ago. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Al.
Yeah, yes, just to ask whether or not we can ask the applicant. Since
you're talking about referral.
Yes, I know, but the reason for the referral is
the applicant. Are you voting to refer it or not?
The rationale for the referral was to ask for higher density, right? So I think the applicant's here. I think we can ask them that for the answer. If they can give us an answer right now, why bring it back?
Thank you. Let Mr. Al finish.
Yeah, I finished.
Okay. Mr. Hobbs.
Oh, sorry, was I finished? Thank you, through the chair. This is on the referral. A number of points were made. Just on I think the driveway width was one. So that was one point made in the referral, and I'm satisfied that the driveway width, as explained, is satisfactory for safety reasons. It reduces the number of...
No, can we have on the referral?
This is on the referral. I think all of that was mentioned.
Well, it's not quite. Are you in favor of the referral?
No, and I'm explaining why.
Okay. All right.
If that's okay.
Yes, carry on. I'm going to be tight on you and everybody else.
Okay, thanks. When it comes to the rental aspect of the current properties that are rented versus what's being proposed in the plan, potentially there's over 4 times as many rental units in the development as there exists now with the 6 existing properties. And the 6 existing properties are not affordable for people to buy, as well as ownership, the people that own potential townhouses that are built on this site. The current houses are completely unaffordable for your average person. And you might end up with more rental units in this development in any case. But the real question for me is, we are in favor of higher density in general, and that's the major thrust of this referral. So I just want to be clear, it was asked, but it wasn't clear. To staff, the question is, has this site maximized the density that's permitted under the current zoning?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, yes.
Okay, so then for me, why I wouldn't support the referral is because it already has maximized the site. So I don't see any point in referring it back to try and get more density, because that's our issue when it comes to zoning. It's us who have to change the community plan, I believe, if we want to have greater zoning. That's not up to this applicant to increase it when he's not allowed to, or she isn't allowed to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, Harold, on the referral?
Yeah. My reason for the referral would be to immediately take a look at increasing the density in the community plan and see if this developer wanted to carry through, because it seems to me it's a real waste having to wait another 30 years to knock this development down to increase the density, because that's what we're going to have to do in the future, and the future is here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, everybody has spoken on the referral. Mr. Ersick, I'll give you another chance, and then I'm going to call the question.
Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, I want to make sure that committee isn't under the impression that it's been a long time since this density was reviewed. In fact, it was reviewed relatively recently in the last few years as part of the arterial road strategy. So certainly you can deal with it as you wish, but I do want you to know that council collectively reviewed the densities along the arterials, including this site, and made a conscious decision around the maximum density quite recently. And certainly we will be reviewing density further in all precincts as part of the OCP review, but that is not something that can be turned around in a month or two. Mm-hmm. Okay. That is going to take a considerable amount of time. So, within the last 2 years, I think, Wayne, we reviewed the arterial road policies and densities. That's a recent decision of council. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have a motion to refer it. All those in favor of referring it back? Councillor Day, I can't. And Harold. Those opposed? In the negative, Hobbs, Al, McNulty, and Lou. All right, the question on the motion on the floor to introduce and give them first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Steves, Lou, McNulty, Al, Hobbs. Those opposed? Day. It's carried. It will go to for first reading Monday night. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is a housing agreement for bylaw 10129 to permit the City of Richmond to secure affordable housing units at 8131 Westminster Highway. And the motion on the floor will be to introduce and give first, second, and third reading. And I would go over to Cody Spencer. Cody, are you here? Yes, I see. Cody, you're on.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We have nothing to add to the report, but I'm happy to answer.
Well, I'm sure there are some questions because we also have a delegation after. Are there any questions, Mr. Spencer, at the moment? All right, seeing none, could we have Catherine McCurry on? I have her down for item number 3. I hope I'm correct here. Thank you very much. Ms. McCurry, welcome, and you've got 5 minutes to tell us what's on your mind.
Great, thank you. I have some understanding to confirm, and in addition to some questions and concerns. I reviewed the housing agreement in addition to Cody's report, and I just want to confirm that the total max household incomes after tax were the 2022 LEMA rate. That's what I'm kind of inferring from a previous discussion that Cody had with the Richmond Poverty Reduction Coalition last week. So that was one thing. I'll just set that aside. So I do have some general questions. I noticed that the applicant, who is the owner, is a numbered company, and I was just wondering how the city is ensuring that the owner has skill and expertise to manage the affordable housing units and to ensure the supply is available to those in need. As we've seen in the past with the Capstan development, for example, the affordable housing units were...
It's us. Okay, all right, carry on.
Sorry?
Carry on.
Were owned and operated by a nonprofit with sort of some expertise in this area. So that was kind of a question I had. Another question I had was that it says in the documentation that the city can permit the sale of all of the affordable units as long as the units are sold in one block. So I was curious what assurances the city will have that the purchaser is experienced in managing the affordable rental units and able to confirm the eligibility. So basically, if this particular owner decides to sell off the units, basically they only have to give 3-day notice to the city solicitor as per the agreement. So this is notified, and then all of a sudden somebody else will take over management of the units. And so that seems like notification. But is there anything else in place to ensure that units will then be managed by somebody appropriately? And then the last thing I sort of wanted to bring up was this declaration, which is on page 96. There's a table that the owner or the person managing the affordable units would have to fill out and declare to the city. And I think that there's some outdated information on it because there's columns for fees collected, such as parking, move-in, move-out fees, storage fees, and extra amenity fees. But the housing agreement itself states that there won't be any extra fees for the affordable rentals. So, and the table also illustrates that personal information such as the age below 18 years old and the age above 55 years old has to be documented. But the agreement also states that age isn't an issue. You're not assessing whether someone can have a unit based on what age category you fall into. So why you're requiring that information on a statutory declaration, I'm not quite sure. So I won't ask too many questions, but those are my questions. Otherwise, generally, I'd say I'm in support of 10% affordable units. I know that the majority of them are family friendly. Yeah, and then the one other thing I wanted to mention is I noticed that it's not clear whether these affordable units will have parking.
Perfect.
So I'll leave it at that, and we'll see what Cody has to say.
You've come just under the wire. Thank you. Cody, is there anything you want to respond to on that before we go to the next delegation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just emphasize that city staff work very closely with the property managers for each lemur building, and we're very careful to monitor every building to ensure that it complies with the rules of the program. And in addition, the city completes a statutory declaration process, which is a formal audit to confirm that the units are rented as required.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Catherine, for your presentation. Okay, the next one, I've got Dee Whalen down for this item. Am I correct now on my sheet? Thank you. Ms. Whalen. Yeah, there you are.
Got it right this time.
You've got 5 minutes.
I would like to speak on items 3, 4, and 5.
Do you want to do it all at once?
I'll do it all at once. Is that okay?
Well, I'm only going to give you 5 minutes.
That's right. I understand. My name is Deirdre Whalen. You all know me. I've lived in Richmond since 1975. I've seen a lot of changes in the city I love since then, especially the development of high-cost condo housing. I'd like to speak today on items 3, 4, and 5 as I see them all as connected. I commend the excellent work of city staff on these reports. The child care strategy and the senior strategy especially both lay a framework for the future. However, both of these reports depend on the provision of rental housing because seniors and families are two prominent groups that are part of the well-reported 20% of Richmond residents experiencing poverty. These are also the large proportion of Richmondites who rent. The gap in housing is a glaring omission in both of these reports. The city's Housing Needs Report 2021 states that 94% of housing builds in the last 30 years have been condos and houses. Only 4% have been rentals. This outcome is exemplified in the city's affordable housing strategy, which is developer-driven and depends on developers providing low-end market rentals, or LEMUR, housing units. Item number 3 is a good report, and it is in line, I think, with the affordable housing strategy. It seeks approval for a housing agreement where the developer promises 13 LEMUR units and 121 condos. In other words, only 10% of this new build is slated for rental, and it's market rental at that. The city should not be depending only on private interests to provide housing that our community so sorely needs. The community should be welcoming seniors, families, newcomers, single parents, people with disabilities, and low-wage workers to come, stay, and live in Richmond. For any city to remain a vibrant and thriving community, it needs a variety of incomes, not just people who can afford million-dollar condos. Service workers cannot afford to live here. Young professionals who grew up here can't afford to stay. Even first responders are finding it difficult to find housing they can afford. Richmond deserves better. There have been no non-market rentals built for at least 5 years. With a burgeoning seniors population and more newcomer families moving here, non-market housing is the only thing that makes sense. Federal and provincial funding is available. Why is City Council not prioritizing the construction of non-market housing? Seniors and families that need childcare, they especially need housing they can afford. These vulnerable groups are more likely to visit the food bank to seek out free community meals than other residents. The food bank reports that they receive over 2,000 clients a week. Hajira Hussain, who is the executive director of the food bank, reports that at least 1/3 of these are children, and about 52% of their households that are clients are living in market rentals. Housing, seniors, and childcare are closely connected. Richmond City Council ignores this at their peril. Strategies are just reports, just sitting on a shelf if there's nowhere for ordinary people to live. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Whalen? Okay, thanks very much, Deidre. Okay, thank you. All right, any other comments of staff? Carol?
Yeah, so this was approved under the old plan with only 10% of the 134 units, 13 being affordable units. So obviously, I'm not happy about that, but it is what it is, and today we're talking about the housing agreement. What I'm concerned about is the housing agreement, which is on page 75, is completely outdated. We now require a name, not just a number for a corporation. So that's right off the top. And then, as was pointed out by Ms. McCleary, the chart on page 96 is also completely out of date. As it states in our staff report, these renters cannot be charged parking fees, move-in, out fees, storage fees, amenity usage fees, and other tenant fees. So my question to staff is, why are you presenting an out-of-date document? It's even got David Weber as the city clerk. We now know for years Claudia Jessen has been our city clerk. So when do we get a new agreement, updated?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, it's correct that no additional fees can be passed on to tenants. And for that reason, we explicitly ask for information about fees through the statutory declaration process to confirm that those fees are not being charged. So the form is up to date and intentionally designed.
Was not Mr. Weber the clerk when this application first came forward? It's been in the hopper that long? Okay. Okay. Councillor Lew.
Thank you, through the chair. Question to staff. With your basic unit, your affordable housing unit, you are entitled to all the rights and things that everybody else has. However, if you happen to be a family and you have a second vehicle and you only get one vehicle with your thing, you do have the option, if they're available, to pay for a second parking spot. And if you do have extra stuff you need to store, you are entitled to have access to extra storage if other people have access to it at whatever rate everybody's paying. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Lew, yes, that's correct. Tenants, the low-end market rental units have the same access to parking and amenity spaces as all other tenants.
Okay, so if there is a surcharge for a second spot or other things for everybody else, then they also get them if that's what they want to have.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. To staff, can we not get a memo on the numbered company, who the board of directors are? I'm sure we would have that. Can that be circulated? It says first, second, third readings before fourth reading.
Mr. Chair, we can look into compiling that information and can follow up with a memo. Yeah.
Well, the developer will provide that information. Okay, that'll be a request that before they would get anything further, that they declare. And one of the things is, and Councillor Day was right, we did ask for that when a number of company came, who the principals were. So I think in future reports, we asked staff to put that in.
No matter what you name it.
Okay, we did ask for that.
We did.
So we're going to get Harold.
Yeah, I've got a question to staff. How many more developments do we have coming in that would be exempt from our new regulations? Because these keep popping up. And is this the last one, I hope?
Through the chair to Councillor Steeves, I don't have that information available today, but could follow up by memo if needed.
Okay, could we have that?
That'd be great.
Yep, thank you. Good point, Harold. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I haven't quite finished yet.
Go ahead.
I got a number of questions. I'm not going to vote against it because it does meet our requirements, but I would like to see this making sure the requirements increase very quickly. The questions I have is that in terms of the environmental issues, is this one in the area where we have geothermal? Is it able to connect with the with our district energy system?
Through the chair to Councillor Steeves, the primary purpose of this report today is to secure the terms and conditions for the operation of the affordable housing unit. I don't have that information available, but again, we could follow up by memo.
Okay, that'd be great, because I have the same question about this one as the other, and as I asked earlier about the environmental type of heating they have. And finally, I think when we're negotiating this as well, If we're having less affordable housing units, my question would be to do the same as Talisman, at least require them to put rooftop gardens or some other amenities in that we used to ask for all the time. And when we increase the amount of affordable housing, we haven't been asking it. So if we're going back to the old ways, well, let's ask them for more stuff.
Through the chair to Councillor Steeves, form and character is being discussed through the development permit process for this file. And again, the purpose of this report is primarily to discuss the operation of the affordable housing unit.
But I think it's important that as councillors we discuss it, because they're not inclined to do these things if we don't say we want them.
Okay. Any other comments on the document that's in front of us?
Call the question.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, any opposed? That's carried, and it will go forward to Monday. Thank you, and thanks staff for the work on this. Appreciate it. And we do have two requests. We have requests to find out about the company's name, and I would expect a memo, and the other, Mr. Cody, you have that under advisement. Okay. The next item that we have is our child care needs assessment strategy and update. And we have in front of us the strategy from 2017 to 22 to be updated, but looking at it from 21 on, and opportunity to distribute to the stakeholders, et cetera. So Chris Dugan is here with us, and I see your hand up, Mr. Hobbs. Is that still? Okay, no problem. Okay. Chris, anything to add to your report or anything you want to highlight?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, well, I'll start off. Actually, an outstanding report. I guess my question is, to be quite frank with you, given what we've got, is the report based on stats, or is it realistic if people will move into the community? I think we're going to need way more childcare than what we've already got, because we've been talking about childcare since, I guess, Harold, when the nylon Isugi factory on Steveston Highway got turned down in 1989. I remember that, when we're trying to bring childcare into the community. So we've come a long way. So I guess, my question is, are we realistic, and should we shoot a little bit harder and ask for more every time, or put it as part of a development as an amenity? What is wrong with putting childcare as an amenity? You know, we build all these amenity rooms and all these kinds of things in apartments and complexes, and they're used for the barbecue on July 1st and used for the Christmas party or New Year's party, and they're closed the rest of the time. We could have childcare in there. And so is that a possibility?
To the chair, we are working with the development applications team around future opportunities to secure additional childcare. And the childcare provisions with regards to being included as amenities in developments are a little bit complicated by the childcare licensing regulations, in that they do require both indoor and outdoor space. But certainly we would support the creation of further childcare enrichment to meet the community need.
Well, thank you. I think we should be bullish on it, and we should push. That's one of the amenities, I think, in a complex where we have wasted grounds in a townhouse with a picnic table there, when we could have had maybe a child care facility or whatever with some kind of ground or adjacent to a park, et cetera. So, no, thank you for that. I'll reserve my questions to others and to close. Andy, you're on.
Thank you, and through the chair. Well, I too really appreciated this report. It was very thorough and enlightening. The analysis, the planning, and the policy were very informative, and I liked the results with the developer amenity and volunteer contributions and grants that contributed to the progress that has been made. Just a quick couple comments and a couple questions. Again, the 18 actions 8 strategies, 32 actions actually, and some sub-actions as well. I thought those are pretty impressive because I think fully 18 actions are completed and probably about a third of them at least are ongoing in nature. So that's very good progress, and I think it's reflected in some of the numbers that are talked about in the report. The 33% increase from 2016 to 2021, I think is great news. And of course, as Councillor McNulty pointed out, we always want to do better, but that's a pretty significant increase. So one question I had was, on page 114, when you looked at the provincially funded childcare spots, I think it said there was 3,634 spaces, and Richmond got 403 of those. So that's a little over 10%, or quite a bit over 10%, quite frankly. So is that a particularly good year for Richmond, or can you just explain why it is that Richmond seems to be doing so well in that regard?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, Richmond has received a fairly high number of the Childcare BC New Spaces funds over the lifetime of that grant stream. Part of the reason is that a number of the facilities in Richmond who have applied for that funding have applied for very large numbers of spaces. Some of these facilities have been in the area of 150 to 200 spaces. So we haven't necessarily received a higher proportion of facilities, but the numbers of spaces in those facilities have been quite high.
Oh, great, because the number of spaces is actually what counts in the end, I think. So just a couple other questions. What does the research or your experience indicate when you, no, actually, I won't ask that question today. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I just thought it was a very good report, and I think there's been a lot of progress made on it, and I appreciated it. It was very informative. Thank you.
Michael?
Thank you, through the chair. 2 questions on this. First one, if only 33% of our demand is met by licensed, the collection of licensed organizations, where do the other 66% find care? Is it the unlicensed, or is it in other municipalities' licensed care?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, that is a very interesting piece of data that we will be updating and collecting when we begin the update for the next childcare strategy in 2022. And currently, based on our anecdotal information that we have, there are many families who are indicating that they are unable to work because they can't afford or find childcare. And then there are a very large number of informal arrangements that families make with family members or neighbors or childcare exchange with other individuals. There is also a category of childcare that is not captured in this demographic data, and it's a category called license not required. So anytime an individual is caring for less than 2 children other than their own, they're not required to have a license. And so there are also many providers in Richmond that meet that criteria as well. So it's a combination of very many things, combined with some families who are indicating they cannot find childcare.
Thank you for that great set of details. I really appreciate that, and look forward to reading more about it in the report as you can further unveil some of the challenges and needs here. My last question, I'm not sure. Maybe Mr. Craig is best for it. Could a childcare facility be offered in something like that was a few items ago on today's agenda, where there was the application to create the medium density townhouses, but the indoor amenity space is not going to be used, so instead they're giving money to contribute. Could a facility of that size accommodate a childcare licensed center?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, in terms of city zoning, childcare is a permitted use on almost all zones in the city, including townhouse zones. So we do have a few townhouse sites in the city where the indoor amenity space is used for childcare. So it is possible. I'm not sure if I've answered the question. So.
There was just a clarification through the chair to Mr. Craig was that could a medium density townhouse development such as this one be appropriate for it? And I think you answered yes.
Yes, what I would just add to that is we do have townhouse sites that do have childcare incorporated in them. The most recent examples would be the townhouses that were developed on the former Steveston High School site where there's a city-owned childcare site involved. We also have a townhouse development on the north end of the city on River Drive where there is also a city-owned childcare provided as part of that. I believe the situation you're describing would be a private arrangement, and as I say, zoning does allow that.
Great, appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Carol?
Thank you very much. Through the chair, so I see that the Child Care Development Advisory Committee reviewed and monitored several changes to the child care legislation and funding programs that were initiated by senior levels of government, to support more initiatives. And so that's great. They're doing their part. And clearly we're doing everything we can. But the question has to be asked of Mr. Craig. So we require a certain percentage of each development must go towards affordable housing. There must be rental housing. There must be money for public art. There must be money for trees and parks. Could we require a specific amount from every development, whether it's just, building 2 houses on one lot or town medium density or high density or the big complexes? Could we require that a percentage of that goes towards childcare spaces?
Through your worship or through the chair to Councillor Day, such a policy does already exist within the city center area plan. Within our most dense neighborhoods, we do require a contribution towards childcare as a condition of rezoning. There is also, I believe, within certain area plans, cash contributions to childcare required. I believe the Hamilton area plan is one such plan, which includes that provision.
Cranberry.
Would it help if we had like an umbrella policy directed by staff to make it a given that every single neighborhood will be, upon redevelopment, require money or childcare spaces? And obviously we would have a higher rate in the city center than we would have in some of the smaller neighborhoods. Is that something that would be helpful to staff?
Through the chair, I would defer that question to Ms. Duggan as the expert in the field.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we would support the opportunity for either additional cash in lieu contributions or additional childcare amenities to be created throughout the city to help meet our childcare targets and to meet the needs that the community has.
All right, then through the chair, when we're finished with this, I think we need to make that referral motion that we create an umbrella policy that makes sure that every single development that happens in Richmond contributes to the childcare spaces in Richmond.
Yeah, I think we already have it.
According to Mr. Craig, we have a certain policy for Hamilton, another policy for downtown, which is a higher requirement. But if we had an umbrella policy that basically we just subdivided one lot into 2 houses today, on Williams, every single development should contribute to the child care program, so to speak. And it sounds like Mr. Craig referred this to Chris Dugan, who said that any policy that would have an overreaching, all-encompassing effort to create more childcare spaces would be welcome.
Okay, we'll come back to you on that. Councillor Rao, I saw you. Are you okay now? You're on.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm allergic to something in the room. So anyway, I'm outside. Now I have a question on PLN 116 regarding the Richmond School District. On page 116, it's mentioned that school district created 42 the Tomset Elementary and also 27 spaces at Tay Elementary. Now, 2 questions. One, are these childcare spaces directly operated by the school district? And secondly, I remember that in the past, the school district did not get involved in the actual operation of daycare centers. So is this a change of policy, or, I mean, does it come from the provincial government?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, yes, both of these childcare facilities are on school district property and have been constructed with by the school district using funds from the provincial government. The school district is not operating either of these facilities. They have taken a similar approach to the cities in that they have leased these two facilities to not-for-profit operators as per the requirements of their the provincial funding. And the second question, I'm going to need you to refresh my memory, please.
So I just mentioned that in the past, the school district did not actually get involved in running daycare centers. So is this a change of policy, or does this kind of initiative comes from the provincial government?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, the school district has included in their current long-range facility plan a commitment to continue to provide childcare spaces in Richmond. There's no indication in that long-range facility plan or through my discussions with my colleagues at the school district that they plan to operate any of these full-day childcare programs.
Thank you.
Okay. Joe, did you want to jump in here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may, to Councillor Day's earlier comment regarding childcare and policy, I guess to date, the childcare requirements have tended to apply to the higher density, bigger projects. One, because they tend to be more viable in terms of a contribution, and two, because we can get often bricks and mortar actual centres built through development. And I think that that's one of the big reasons that you've seen quite an increase in childcare capacity in the city. Regarding applying an across-the-board requirement, whether it's cash or bricks and mortar, if there is a referral, I just encourage you to perhaps make that referral to staff to investigate and report back. It will have an impact on the viability of some of the smaller projects. And, you know, it really isn't a matter of, you know, affordable housing or childcare. In most cases, you can do both, but we do need to be aware that the cumulative effect of the requirements can have an impact on viability of small projects.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Liu?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for this. And a question to staff. It seems to me that Minister Katrina Chen made an announcement recently, and part of that announcement was that childcare would start falling under Ministry of Education. And so that whole move towards schools providing that, but also it may even be the creation of 4-year-old kindergarten. We don't know what's going to happen, but it could include even that level like they've done in Ontario. But it seems to me that one of the main things that came up quite a bit, and especially during COVID that we were running into, that was attracting and keeping our early childhood educators. And so it also occurs to me that our early childhood educators, some of them are making fairly low wages, and they're actually eligible to be in our affordable housing. And I've certainly mentioned it before, we've had this discussion, but making sure that they know that they're eligible for this potential housing opportunities in Richmond. And it seems to me that we also, so it's not always just creating the spaces, because we do allow childcare nearly everywhere, but we don't allow it on agricultural land. So people have homes that actually are suitable to have it, but we're not allowing them to have childcare on those spaces. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, my understanding is that childcare is a permitted use in the agricultural land as long as it is a secondary use to the primary residence, and for a very limited number of children, up to a maximum of, I believe it is 8.
Okay, so that's the same as your in-home, just if you were having your own small childcare. And it occurs to me too that, and I don't know how well it's publicized, but there was that house that someone built in the McNair neighborhood that was purpose-built with the owners living upstairs and then having the ability to have a larger childcare space down below. Did we do that? Am I correct in that? About 3 years ago, maybe?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, yes, we do occasionally see rezoning applications for that type of form of development. Conversion of single-family homes to facilitate that does get complicated in order to meet building code, but we have seen a couple purpose-built structures such as the one you've referenced.
Okay, so there's a variety of different ways that we can attack this, but thank you for this, and thank you for keeping this updated, and thank you also for the Child Care Advisory Committee for all the work they do on this as well, because I know they spend a lot of time and effort and passion on this as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Could I just ask a question, Chris? You mentioned the ALR, the minimum number is 8 that they can have. What is the, if I wanted to have a childcare in the downtown core or whatever, and I had a little bit of grid, is there a minimum number to make it viable? Could I have a group of 4, a group of 6, a group of?
Through the chair, you could have a group of any size.
Okay.
Maximum group sizes are dictated by the child care licensing regulations. Minimum group sizes are based on operator preference and as you mentioned, financial viability of the child care facility.
What is child care, if you wish, if I have a group of 6 and I am qualified, et cetera, and I'm not saying it's babysitting, it's actual child care within a home or whatever, a backyard or somebody's. So could you have child care in private residence?
Yeah. To the chair, yes, you can. There are 2 categories of licensed childcare that can take place in a residence. Family childcare, which has a maximum group size of 7 children, and licensed in-home multi-age care, which is a maximum group size of 8.
Okay, thank you very much. I know, a great report. I think we've always had good reports on child care. It keeps us up to date. Let us know. It'd be nice to have, if there were spaces within schools and what have you, to have them, especially when the park areas are there and some of them where they're declining enrollment, to keep them going up. Are you going to, Councillor Day, you're going to ask to investigate?
Yes, so the referral motion that, do we want to vote on this Child Care Committee report first and then do my motion?
Yes, actually, we do. Okay, the recommendation is that the needs assessment strategy outlined in the staff report, 2017 to 22 Child Care Needs Assessment Strategy, 2021 update dated February 14th, 2022 from the Director of Social Development be received for information. And that the 2017-22 needs assessment and 21 update be distributed to key stakeholders, local members of parliament, local members of the legislative assembly, and posted on the city website. And I would so move. Seconded. All those in favor? Contrary carried. With, sorry, everybody there? Okay, good. With thanks. Okay, you're going to make a motion to investigate?
Yeah, so my referral motion is to direct staff to investigate developing an umbrella policy for all Richmond redevelopments that would require a child care contribution. And I can speak to that if there's a seconder.
I'll second it to put it on the floor.
Thank you. Only by asking the questions can we get the answers. And Mr. Ersick did say that normally we apply these policies to higher density projects. But if we're going to do it across the board, then let's make a referral motion so they can report back to see whether it's feasible or not. It may not be, but I think it's our job as councillors to ask the hard questions, and we have very talented staff on board that could potentially come up with a program. And I'm looking at just that one on Williams where we were just dividing the house into 2. I mean, there's school site acquisition charges charged, there's address assignment fees, and there's water storm, sanitary servicing, and all sorts of other fees. I'm not saying it has to be $1 million, but if we added a little fee to every single development that came through, if this is feasible, and I don't know that it is, think about a difference that could make in acquiring more childcare spaces. As Ms. Dugan has pointed out, they're always in need of.
I guess I just have a question of staff. And maybe with that, you could provide what fees we charge now, because as soon as we add something to it, up goes the cost to the provider at the end. And affordable housing starts you putting stuff out. Affordable housing goes down the drain. You know, we talk about affordable housing, and we keep adding these surcharges because it's something we want. I'm not disagreeing because I believe in childcare, but soon as you add something, maybe we should review our contributions to some of our other fees to include childcare. For example, whatever.
Reduce the fees?
Well, I don't want to take it from the Affordable Housing Fund, but we've got public art, et cetera. Maybe we take $3 from this, that, or the other thing you do, but I'd like to also include it in that, what the implications are for affordable housing. Soon as you start putting money on the table, we price ourselves right out, and I think that's one of the costs. The prices are going up, but they're going up because of the fees. If we took away all the fees that they contributed from the city, here it's sort of $500,000 or whatever, that unit should be $500,000 cheaper. So, you know, anyhow, it's something if we can do that and add to it. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to refer. I see Councillor Steves, your hand only, so you're on. Oh yeah, you're down here, and you're muted. So, go ahead.
Am I still muted?
No, you're not now.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can hear you now.
Okay. Well, I support the referral. I think staff should do a bit of an analysis in general of the fees we charge, because in effect, when we add fees on, it isn't added on to the cost of the house. The cost of the house or the cost of the apartment is based on the market, and what we faced in this last year, and right now with Russia and everything else, everything is going up. It's the ability people have to pay for it is what rises the prices, and with people coming from other countries and they can pay all this money for it, the owners are getting a bonanza because effectively it increases the values dramatically. So I think one way we can get a better share of it is if we do put costs on it for different aspects of society that we need to fund. And I think it's a good way of doing it because it's not going to affect the upper cost. It's just going to get us more money, and the increased value to the owner will be less than it would be if we didn't put the costs on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hobbs?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll support the referral. Much has been said, but I think it'll be an interesting analysis in terms of need, for one thing, versus affordability impact to do with all kinds of things, development, but also what's our capacity to provide the spaces in terms of either brick and mortar or just spaces in another capacity, because if you collect the fees, I'd be interested to know that it's actually something that you can see through to the end. So, but I'll be supporting it because it is an important issue, and I think that looking at it is a very reasonable thing to do. Thank you.
Are there any more comments on the referral? All right, all those in favor? Contrary? Carried. Okay, that's referred to staff. One more thing to do for you. And do we have a timeline we want on this? Okay, nobody wants timeline. Okay, fine. Okay, the next item is the draft seniors strategy from 2022-32, and it's from the Director of Community Social Development. It'd be approved, and we seek public feedback and report back to staff, and have a final summary for the public and to have that received. And Ms. Hertha, you're on. Debbie, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing to add to the report at this time, but would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Andy, I see your hand still up, no?
Sure, it's up, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
You're on.
Okay, thank
okay,
you.
And then
thank you, through the chair. Well, thanks for the report. Again, it was very interesting with lots of information. I won't go through the whole thing, but, and I could be in a conflict of interest actually, since I'm a senior. But I did enjoy the guiding principles and the research themes. I thought they were very good. So Just in terms of research and reaching out to seniors, I mean, a lot of people are on Facebook and that kind of thing, but how easy is it or how effective is it, and what means do you anticipate reaching out to seniors in terms of like mail, website, newspapers, especially like 55 is one thing, but you get to 65, 70. Have you noticed any trends? Like how do you reach everybody, and how successful have you been in reaching people in terms of percentages of the senior population?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs. Right now, we do communicate with seniors in a variety of ways. We do not have numbers on how many we do reach, but it's through newspaper ads and newsletters, through participation. So when a senior does attend a program at a community center or other city facility, there is communication to them at that time, as well as email, social media. There are a number of ways. And we also connect with seniors through community partners. So we will connect with their clients through different means, and lots of community service organizations who do a variety of services, provide a variety of services towards seniors, grocery, shopping services, and so forth.
Okay, just a couple other comments. I mean, that's good to hear because, I mean, one of the things you mentioned in the report, which I think is so important and probably underreported in a way, is social isolation of seniors and those who don't have family support or other community support or networks. So I really think that's an important part of the report. And just in terms of safety, which is also mentioned in the report, are you able to comment on any kind of data or responses you've got in terms of how seniors kind of across the board feel about their safety in Richmond? Because perception of safety is one thing, and I've had a couple conversations and I've got different responses from different seniors. Some feel totally safe and some don't. So do you have anything to add to that in general?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, we don't have isolated information specifically to feeling safe, but one thing is that after talking to the stakeholders for the creation of this strategy, one thing they did put in the they wanted to feel safe. That was a big one of the I will cite the numbers. So when we created the actions and where I'll refer back to it, but it was in the creation of the actions that throughout it that the feeling of safety was noted, but we don't have any information in terms of a report that could lead to numbers of residents feeling safe.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Harold? Harold, you're on. You're muted. Muted twice here. Okay. No, hang on. Harold, we cannot hear you.
It keeps going on and off.
There you go.
Okay.
You're on now.
Yeah, I read this report with a great deal of interest. I've decided I'm going to be a senior in 7 months. When I read the report, the definition of a senior was somebody that was using community centers and walking and doing all these things. And I found I'm not doing all those things. I'm working 24 hours a day, so I can't be a senior. So anyway, I thought that's interesting. So I'm really interested in the outcome of this in the next 6 or 7 months because I'm going to be there. But I want to raise one fact, and that's on page 185, and this is advice for future councils. I raised this when we were building the Stevenson Community Center, that wherever we have airspace above a building, we should be putting seniors housing. And here we have on page 185 that there's, what is it, 32% of the population right now, or 63,000 people are seniors. And we could have used a couple of floors for seniors housing on top of the Stevenson Community Center. So, while it may be too late for the community center, I'd like to suggest to future councils that wherever we've got airspace, if we can put a couple of floors on, and we're stuck at 14 stories in the downtown center, but elsewhere in Richmond we're not. And I think we should be looking at adding seniors wherever we can put them in, because it shows here that we're going to have from 32% to 39% in 15 years from now. So I just wanted to leave that thought.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Carol?
Hi, thank you very much. This is a great report, and as Councillor Steeves pointed out, 32% of our seniors, 32% of our population today is seniors, and by 2036, 39% will be seniors. I've asked staff in the past about keeping seniors at home by offering to help them build secondary suites. And we know that the province puts a lot of restrictions on what it takes to build a secondary suite. And that may be too onerous of an endeavor for a senior. But what about this? So many seniors live in single-family homes, and they've got at least 1 or 2 empty bedrooms. Is there any way that we could help seniors connect with, rooms to let, room and board, homestays, or other ways for someone else to be in the home to, mow the lawn and take out the garbage and help those seniors stay at home longer than they would otherwise do? I know when my mom was living on her own that last year, I had to be there every single day to do something. And I wonder if we could put together some kind of connection mobile app or something where we could connect people that need a place to stay, given that the rental, vacancy rate is so low. And I was just on my iPhone looking, and there's a room in a house, $1,200 a month. So wouldn't that help a senior to provide more services, whether they're in-home services or whatever? I know I'm really thinking outside the box here, but is there anyone on staff that could, link me or link us to an idea like that?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, we do have a number of actions outlined under the strategic direction, age-friendly, the age-friendly plan. So there are actions that address supporting seniors through the continuum of care, and also looking at different best practices that are used in other cities and municipalities. And so that could be something that would come up. There is an existing service that is provided in Vancouver that is looking at exactly that. So perhaps under this, when we go to do the implementation, that will come up as a best practice.
Thank you, Ms. Hertha. What's that service called in Vancouver?
It's a share. It's used actually with university students, but I could send you the detailed information about that and others.
I think this could be a win-win situation if we could try to connect people who need a place to stay that could maybe help out a little bit, and seniors that could probably use the company too. Thank you.
All right, Chuck.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank staff for the excellent report. I really enjoyed reading mainly the part starting from page 176, when you talk about the strengths, the gaps and challenges, and also the opportunities. I think this very in-depth analysis of the situations on different themes. I think very, very, very good information. I also want to echo what Councillor Hobbs mentioned. It's about the safety issues for the seniors. Although we might not have super direct crime against seniors, but I noticed that there has been an increase on scams against our senior citizens. So we've heard of stories about this in the community. So I think probably this is another area we need to look deeper. And we might also have to get the RCMP more involved in trying to find a strategy to safeguard and to protect our seniors. So I think that's one area we need to strengthen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, through the chair to, I was just going to answer Councillor Hobbs. What I was off track a bit. The vision for the senior strategy. So that was something that was loud and clear through the stakeholders, that the vision for the senior strategy is that seniors living in Richmond are safe, respected, healthy, and engaged in their communities. So safety did come out there as definitely something that Richmond residents are wanting to feel.
Okay. Well, thank you for the report. If we can make a couple of comments. The report basically covers, and I notice we talk about 55 plus, but I think the benchmark has got to be 80 plus. When the mayor and I go to the seniors' tea and dancing starts over, there's 100 women. There's only 6 other men in there, and he and I are the other 2 eligible men to dance with 94 other women. Because it creates a problem. It is, many are widowed, and there is, seniors are more active now. And listening, I remember saying something to, at the tea to the lady, I said how well she looked, and she says, I'm 104 years old. And I said, well, that's great, where's your boyfriend? I was being a smart aleck, and she said, he's right here. And I looked at him, and he says, he's only 102. So this is what we've got in Richmond. We've got a generation of seniors who are what I'm calling, Harold, you're more than a senior, you're a pioneer. And I think we need to recognize the contributions of our seniors within the community. They paid their taxes, for 70, 80 years, and they're the ones that built this community. And I think we need to recognize that they didn't inherit it, they built it, and there's still a lot around. Coming on, and I do support the idea of safety. I really think we should look at it, and we should be working with the RCMP, everything from phone scams to traffic congestions and crosswalks, where the light needs to be a bit longer in certain areas, especially by Coventry Gardens and a few of the others, Gilmore Gardens. Maybe that light should be a little bit longer for people to walk across. I think we need to look at that. And it was mentioned social isolation, but more importantly, not just isolation, but loneliness in our programming. I think it's extremely important that we have deference to that, and I think we're addressing it and it's on it. So I appreciate the report as others do. I'd like to keep it up to date so that we continue to do it. And the other thing too, we've got to look at as well as seniors in poverty. Okay, I think it's an extremely important thing. Somebody retiring today gets a pension or Canada pension. I'm not sure what it is, but somebody who retired 30 years ago or 35 years ago or 40 years ago is not getting the same as pension and benefits, if they even get a pension, as somebody today. So I think we need to look at that. I know you've highlighted in there, but I think it needs to be addressed in greater numbers on it. There are seniors that can't, especially if they're renting and they're living alone in an apartment. So anyhow, with that, Councillor Liu, wrap it up.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you to staff for this. I'm just curious why we're choosing 55 plus years versus say 65 plus years. I've got a girlfriend, she's 50, she's pregnant with twins. I don't think when she's taking her kids to preschool, she's thinking of herself as a senior. So I'm just wondering why we're picking that number and versus 65, because I think it does skew our numbers a little bit to say, oh, we're going to have 39% of our population over 55. It's like, yeah, a lot of those 55-year-olds are out biking 100K on Saturday morning. They're all like working as lawyers. They're making good money. They're none of these things basically, or just like Councillor Steves was saying, they're not a senior yet. So why are we picking 55, not 65?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, I think the decision to make seniors at 55 was done before I was in the position. So I do think that there will be a report coming to Councillor later on in the year addressing those issues.
Okay, thank you. Because I know we also were looking at, the seniors rate subsidy for a number of things and sort of looking around at, who's doing what and who's buying things. You got some guy rolling in on his $20,000 bike. He doesn't need a discount to go swimming. So, thanks.
Okay, we've all had a comment. The recommendation is to be approved and authorize public feedback and strategy and finalize the strategy and report back to the council with the final strategy once the public feedback is received. So moved. Second. All those in favor, contrary, carried. Good discussion. Okay. The next item is zoning bylaw amendment public hearing, and the bylaw is to give be introduced and give first reading, and our speaker is our own clerk, Claudia Jensen. So Claudia, we're over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is in response to council direction to incorporate the requirement of holding a public hearing for all zoning bylaws, including those consistent with the OCP. As the committee will recall, the requirement of holding a public hearing for zoning bylaws consistent with an OCP was removed by Bill 26 last fall by provincial legislation. And as a result, this report is now providing the proposed changes to the zoning bylaw.
Okay, any questions of Claudia? All right, a motion moved, seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carried. Thank you very much. And Harold, the urban agriculture in the city center, you're on. We've added.
Great. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you. Good.
Okay, I just want to make a referral to staff about urban agriculture in the city center. The referral would be to look into the potential for providing urban agriculture and vertical farms in the city center and other high-density areas. And I sent everybody a copy of some articles from a vertical farm that contacted me because I said something about urban farms or vertical farms shouldn't be in the ALR, and they contacted me. This is called Vertical Harvest, and they only go into urban centers. They call themselves a public-private partnership. It's a little bit different, so they're looking for cheap land, and that's where the public comes in. You have to negotiate it to put it in when you're doing a development. Like Blundell, for example, if we put 6-story buildings there, we can negotiate. You can go up 6 stories, but you got to provide a half acre for an urban farm that feeds the area. And they specifically, their program is actually to work with disadvantaged people, largely people that are mentally challenged. If you look at any of the any of the videos that are attached to that report, you'll see it looks like we'd probably want to have right next to a Pathways Clubhouse or something like that, and it's quite interesting. But the reason I brought it forward is that a couple of years ago, the Ministry of Agriculture said that when the crunch hits, and it's hitting now with what happened last summer and added to by the war in Russia and Ukraine, that we're going to have to find 90,000 hectares or 227,000 acres of farmland in BC to put back into production. It's land that was in production probably 50 or 60 years ago, but some of it is golf courses and nurseries and horse farms and stuff like that. And instead of that, the recent Ministry of this was in 2016 that the Ministry of Agriculture said that, and then 2021 they're saying, oh, we can do it all with vertical farms, and we need to take 28,000 acres of agricultural land for vertical farms. And so Metro Vancouver has opposed doing that. Metro Vancouver is working on the original plan, which was to get more land in production, and we've got Metro staff have been doing a major analysis of the farmland in the Lower Mainland that we can open up. So basically, I'd like that to be referred. The examples that, if you haven't had a chance to read the articles yet, the examples, the first vertical farm in the USA was by this Vertical Harvest group, and they looked at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and they found a strip of land 30 feet wide beside a 3-story parking lot. and they built a vertical farm 30 feet wide and 110 feet long, the length of the parking lot. It hides the ugly parking lot, and the amount of food they produce is 10 times as much food as what that area would produce if it was being soil farmed. And they're now looking for 10 cities across North America to expand on, but they're looking for bigger farms of half an acre and things like that. So they contacted me, and I thought I'd refer it to staff to see if we can take a look at it. We're being lobbied now. Mosa Hoda's been contacting people that may contact you because our bylaws don't allow vertical farms on farmland because we don't allow greenhouses with concrete floors. And the vertical farm people are lobbying now to get us to change our mind and allow these big tall buildings in farmland. Well, if you can imagine the outrage people have had over the big houses, if you had a half-acre greenhouse up 3 stories, I think they'd be just as angry because it destroys that much land. Plus, you've got these lights on all night and day. And so I think it's important that if we could show the way of getting one vertical farm in our downtown center, we might get them away from this idea of putting them on farmland. The competition is a group called Cubic Farms, and they manufacture vertical farms and hydroponic farms using containers. And they want a place to put a manufacturing plant and probably put a vertical farm as well. And they've been trying to convince staff and everybody in sight to allow them to go into the ALR. And we've been telling them they can go into an industrial park. There's really no need for industrial construction, which is what they're doing, where you're actually taking containers and constructing vertical farms and then selling them to farmers. There's nothing wrong with farmers using a container because it's not vertical. You can put one of these a farm in your driveway if you wanted, if the rules allowed. But it's the whole idea of going up 3 stories in the ALR, destroying an acre of land to do it, when it really should be either in an industrial area or as Vertical Harvest says, it should be in the city because you don't travel with the food. You produce the food right there and it goes out the door right to the customers. And the people that are working in it live right next door as well. You don't need to have people going off into the farmland to get a job. So my referral would be that we'd have staff investigate the potential for urban agriculture and vertical farms in downtown and high-density areas.
I'll second that. Any questions? Andy?
Yeah.
You're on.
Thank you, and through the chair. Yeah, it's an interesting concept, so I'll be supporting the referral as well. And I'll just mention there's a very interesting program on the BBC called Follow the Food, which touches on this issue. And it's about different aspects of farming, including vertical farming. And one example I remember very briefly is just an old parking lot in Paris, and it goes all around the world. And an old parking lot in Paris that's been converted into a mushroom farm. Like, it's ideal for that. So it's a fascinating concept, and yeah, I look forward to hearing what we come up with. Thank you.
Jack?
Yeah, I just want to say that I support this idea very much, and especially the concept of urban agriculture. And I remember that some 15 years ago when we first talked to KPU about Garden City Land, right? We mentioned this urban farming concept. So I would like to see this going forward and to see what we can do with more information coming back for the concept of urban agriculture. Thank you.
Hey, Carol?
Thank you very much. So absolutely, I would love to support this because we do have to get creative. And as we know on the Garden City lands, we just got 200 raised beds for people to farm on the Garden City lands. I hope that this referral will include including KPU in this memo or referral, because I think they are leading the edge on sustainable farming, and I worry about warehouses being built on ALR land, and there's got to be better ways. But at the same time, vertical farming could have its place in certain areas, like along the side of a building, for example. So I would hope that maybe staff can clarify that when you look into this, as Councillor Steeves has pointed out, will you be including local farmers? Will you be including KPU and other interested parties?
But through the chair.
If I could comment on that, I've already talked to KPU about it. I've asked them to. We've got the garden on the roof of the Talisman, and they said yes, they'd be interested in helping out with urban agriculture in the city. I haven't mentioned this one yet, but they've already agreed to help the demonstration garden there.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Joe, did you want to make a comment?
Oh, I was going to, but Councillor Steve's answered for me.
Okay.
So
right. Thank you very much.
We'll talk to you.
All right, for all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Manager's report?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have one update for committee. It's related to the school site acquisition charge. Recently, the province has approved the Richmond School Board capital projects and acknowledged their eligible school site proposal. This will enable the school board staff to potentially take a report forward to the school board trustees seeking their approval to increase the school site acquisition charge, which is applied to all new dwelling units in the city. We anticipate that this new rate could be implemented within the next couple of months, subject to school board trustee approval. We are working with school board staff on consultation with the development industry.
A question, Mr. Craig, is this something that we already charge and we collect for them?
Yes, through the chair, this is an existing charge that is established by the school board. We do collect it on their behalf, and then we transfer the funds to them on a quarterly basis.
So it's basically school board taxes?
The funds are used to acquire sites for the construction of new schools required to support development and population increase.
Okay, but it's based on domiciles within Richmond. Okay, thank you. Anything else from staff?
Nothing else.
Okay. Andy, did you? No, we're in meeting. No, I can't, unfortunately. Sorry. All right, anything else from members committee? Okay, motion to adjourn? We're adjourned. Okay, yeah, no.